The title of my presentation today is Managing Your Forest, Securing Your Asset. I'm going to be covering a range of topics in brief, which applies to both those of you in the audience who have not yet tinned and those of you who are now looking forward to tinning for a second time. So briefly, what I'm going to be discussing is why is tinning important and where to start, what is involved in first tinning, after first tinning, now what, approaching second tinning, what to expect, and managing your forest, securing your asset. I suppose the central theme of the day today is timber sales, and that timber of course comes from harvesting in the forest, and primarily the harvesting we're talking about here is tinning. So why is tinning so important? Well, by a planned removal of trees over a period of years, we are reducing the number of trees in the forest. We're giving those remaining trees more space in which to grow. So essentially we're talking about a crop improvement exercise. The more space that a tree has, the bigger it can become, the more volume it will put on, and the sooner it will move into the more valuable timber categories that you saw demonstrated in the car park earlier. The better the timber, the bigger the timber category, the more valuable your timber becomes. And of course, by selling those thinnings and eventually selling your timber at clear fell, you are going to generate a substantial degree of income. But if you are in a position of planning and preparing for first tinning in particular, you need to address a number of issues. Now, the issue of gaining access into your forest so that you can actually look at the quality and maybe the variation in your forest is extremely important, and it was touched on outside in the earlier discussion. So we're talking here about encouraging owners to cut inspection paths through their forest when the forest is maybe 3 or 4 years before thinning. It means that you and a forestry professional can get access, be able to walk through it, avoid having to bust your way through a thicket of prickly branches, and to be able to see how your trees are doing. Is there variation from the road to the far end, and to just generally have a better idea how suited you are for thinning, or how ready your plantation is for thinning. And once you can get access into your plantation, it means that you can start to take some basic measurements, such as the diameters of the stems, and also the number of trees per hectare by taking some very simple stocking plots. How do you gain this knowledge? Well, first of all, it is quite basic knowledge, and by attending a basic course in conifer timber measurement run by Teagasc, you will learn the basics of timber mensuration, and it will stand to you for the rest of the duration of your forest. By also looking at maybe our thinning ready reckoner, which is published in one of our timber measurement brochures, which is available there at our stand, you can compare the diameters of your forest with the stocking density and see, does your forest fit into a category that it is ready for thinning or it's not ready for thinning. So it's really to give you some guidance there. You will need to provide some sort of a road or a loading bay for timber lorries to take out your timber. So you'll need to look at that aspect and start to plan ahead for that. Now, there is a forest road grant, which I think the Forest Service will be discussing later. That is currently available. You will need a registered forester to apply for that on your behalf. You may also require planning permission if you are creating a new entrance or widening an existing entrance. The important thing to appreciate about a forest road or a loading bay is that it is an essential and long-term part of the infrastructure of your forest. It's going to serve you for the first thinning, and it'll serve you for the remainder of the crop, and indeed for the crop that will follow that in the years to come. But of course, just please remember that before you cut any trees, as thinnings are indeed as part of the road construction, you will require a felling license. And the type of license we're talking about here is a general felling license, which will be operational for a 5-year period. You can apply for this yourself. There's no charge to apply for it, but just bear in mind that you will need it before any thinning or tree felling can commence. So the first thinning operation, the objective is to target the smaller, lighter, poorer quality trees and to generally encourage the improvement and growth of the bigger, better trees that are left. So when the harvesting machine arrives, the harvesting contractor will start to drive into your forest by taking out complete rows of trees. Normally every 1 in 7 lines of trees is removed, although this may vary with the distance between the mound drains in your plantation. As the machine moves up through this line, which we call a rack, the driver reaches in with the machine into the 3 rows of trees either side and thins selectively the poorer quality, smaller, lighter trees. And in some cases, the driver will also remove some of the larger, malformed trees. We refer to those as the wolf trees. Okay? So that is where the selection, this thinning is referred to as a line and selection. And the selection process obviously is very important, that the correct trees are removed. So thinning supervision and maybe taking some plots during thinning is recommended. In a first thinning, because you're dealing still with a semi-mature plantation where you're dealing with quite small trees and you're taking out the worst of them, the category of timber that will be most common will be the lower value pulpwood that will go to panel board and to wood energy. However, if you have delayed your thinning, maybe up until 18 or 19 years old, there may be a small element of larger pallet wood to be removed as well. But generally speaking, in first thinnings, it is dominated by pulpwood. So after your first thinning, now what do you need to be looking at? Well, if you have started with taking some plots, now is the time to take plots after thinning. Why not check to see that the thinning has actually achieved what you had hoped, and that is to leave you with a larger average tree in the forest than before you thinned. Also take some plots to see how many trees on average were removed. This will give you important information over the next few years in advance of second thinning. Your forest road, your drainage network will probably need some maintenance after the heavy harvesting machinery has been on it. There's a question of whether or not you should consider high pruning. High pruning only a portion of your best trees or your potential best trees, as opposed to pruning everything. Trees in Ireland grow very, very fast, as we all know. And within 3 to 5 years, all the gaps that were left after the thinning can be closed in. And when you see the branches of those trees beginning to touch, well, then you are approaching second thinning and you need to start planning for it. If your felling license was approved about 5 years ago, you will need to renew that felling license for a further 5 years. So moving on 3 to 5 years after your first thinning, you're now approaching your second thinning. So what do you expect? Well, because you have fewer trees on the ground and wider spaces between the trees, those trees are going to be larger, taller trees with an increasing amount of commercial timber, in most cases increasing amounts of pallet wood. So it's important before you thin that you know exactly what you have standing in your forest in terms of volume. So a volume assessment is recommended. The major difference between second and first thinning is that in second thinning, all the thinning that is going to be carried out is going to be on a selection basis. There's not going to be any lines of trees taken out, it'll be all selection. So the correct selection, to correctly select the trees to be removed in the second thinning is critical. So therefore we would recommend that owners should consider hiring a forestry professional to mark the thinnings as part of the planning for second thinning. Indeed, when thinning is going on, supervision of the progress and the quality of the thinning is important. And one of the most important aspects of second thinning is what we call thinning control using basal area. Basal area is essentially the cross-sectional area of a fully stocked hectare of forest at 1.3 metres breast height, and it has a very close relationship with volume. So foresters can use basal area as a very effective and efficient way of controlling thinning and making sure that the thinning is done in the best silvicultural manner. Selling your timber, which I presume we all want to do as part of our thinnings, obviously, there are a number of sales options. Normally, thinnings are sold standing, but once you're getting into more valuable commercial timber, you may consider a roadside sale where you organise the harvesting, but you sell your timber roadside. And roadside prices will always make that little bit more because they're just less hassle for a potential timber purchaser. Make sure that when you're selling your thinnings that you get a separate price for pallet, for pulp, for sawlog, for fencing, for energy wood, okay? Also, do you sell by weight by tonnage over the weighbridge, or do you sell by volume? One of the approaches to selling by volume is to know what is the average size tree in your forest before you thin. The advantage of this is that the prices for different volume categories are publicly available. Okay, they are published on a quarterly basis, so as an owner you know that this is what the market is paying for timber in this category at the moment. From a purchaser's point of view, it means that first of all their impression of whoever is selling the thinnings is immediately enhanced in that they're saying to themselves, this guy or this woman is adopting quite a professional approach to the selling of their timber, and there's likely to be a forester involved as well. And from their point of view, they can also foretell much more accurately what type of category of timber and how much of it they are likely to be able to cut out of that particular thinning, and so they can adjust their price accordingly. Every log that is cut in our forests and we want to get paid for, it is critical that we ensure that for every load of timber that leaves through our forest road, there is a secure and robust timber dispatch protocol system in place, so that you know that every load that leaves through your forest or from your forest is fully accounted for. The driver, you are familiar with the haulier, the purchaser you're familiar with, and that every log you are paid for and it's fully accounted for. And all of these above, the dispatch protocol, the type of thinning sales, and obviously the price, that is all subject to a binding and strong timber sales contract. So just to, I suppose, summarise really managing your forest, securing your asset, it's all about you as forest owners taking responsibility for your forest, for its management, and indeed for the future potential value of the trees that are growing there. So it's important that you understand how your forest grows, maybe how you can take basic measurements. So gain knowledge, gain skills, collaborate with your peers. The fact that you have taken the time and effort to come here today, that's a great step forward. Talk to your fellow forestry owners and see, is there a possibility of working and learning together? A critical thing is to know your forest, be familiar with it, what area you have, what type of trees you have, what quality is growing there, and what is the potential and when you should be harvesting those trees. Also, build up a strong and trusting relationship with a forestry professional and your timber buyer. If you've already successfully first thinned, you will have already had formed a working relationship with a forester or a timber buyer, and that will set you up very, very well for your second thinning. And above all, be proactive. Don't manage your forest at arm's length. Get involved yourself. It doesn't mean that you have to be in there every day walking it and measuring it, but be conscious that it is a very valuable asset and it's in your interest and in your family's interest to get the very, very best out of it, because you invested your land and time and grant in that 15 or 20 years ago, and you are the one who should be getting the reward from it. The foresters that are out there, and it's fantastic to see how many companies are represented here today, they can offer you great professional services. Their own experience, their own processes, and above all, that you build a trusting working relationship and hopefully a long-term relationship with those. So talk to the foresters and forestry companies and the other service providers that are here today and see what range of services that they can offer you. We have loads of information available. We have it on the stand, we have it online, and as I mentioned there earlier, we also have put up a couple of videos of forestry related videos, including inspection paths, on our forestry website. And your local forestry advisor is always available to talk to you and give you advice and hopefully help you along the way with your forest. Okay, thank you very much.